Hey folks, this is just supplemental to video number 2 on this bush machine. So if you got here through a search, you're going to want to watch number 2 first, and if you haven't seen number 1, you might want to watch that too. So take a couple hours and catch up. But there's a couple things I noticed after I'd already uploaded number 2. So as you can see here, I've got the chain out. Okay, and you can plainly see the broken link. If I can get some light in behind it there, you can see this broken link. So I'll probably just get a master link for that and throw it back in. So everything's all tidy inside here now. The broken chain's out, nothing left in there but good chains. Yeah. These chains I've been noticing are really out of adjustment though. There's no way that's supposed to be that loose, so I'll have to get in there and do the proper adjustment. The idler sprocket is now all loose. I could actually, I think, take that sprocket out now. Of course, looks like they made it they made the hole just a little bit too small for that sprocket to come through there, but there's probably a trick. I'll figure that out. Probably has something to do with sliding that shaft through or something. Anyways, what I really wanted to show you is a couple things that I've discovered in the engineering of this thing that I'm not real excited about, but I can fix it. I was kind of curious. Okay, so this is where my parts cleaner is, so I've been bringing the bits over here and shining them up. So here's one of the flanges, one of the front flanges, and you'll notice this is the groove that the O-ring would sit in that you saw in number 2, and then there'd be that flange that, well, you'd think bolts on to hold it in place, but what they used was little taps, like self-tapping screws. So I don't like the idea of that. Self-tapping screws are so weak, and you can see where somebody has broken one off and drilled a new hole over there. And this one, well, I broke one off here. So the one furthest to the right is broken off. You see it's still in there. People have done the same over here and just I don't know if the holes just got wallered out or what. But yeah, there's one broken off in the middle. I'm gonna re-engineer this. I might turn it like 10 degrees or so, put it in the drill press, or maybe I'll just use the existing hole so I can be exact, and drill and tap for bolts. You know, there'll be small bolts, but these self-tapping screws, I think that's a pretty cheesy way to handle the O-ring retainer, and quite frankly I think these O-rings should be changed a lot. So make a system that, you know, will hold together when I change them a lot. The other thing I noticed is I was told by my friend up north that these all came yellow, at least the old ones in the 70s, and I can plainly see yellow paint underneath the gray. And it's kind of funny because I was told that maybe the gray paint means it was Ontario Hydro that purchased this one, and apparently all the Ontario Hydro ones were painted gray. I think it's funny that they just took a yellow one and threw some gray paint over it rather than fill an order for Ontario Hydro and just paint everything from scratch gray. Just grab one out of the warehouse that's already yellow and paint over it. So I'm going to clean these up. Like, I got them through the parts cleaner now, but I've been sort of looking over them real carefully for cracks or anything, make sure that I don't have to, you know, get it off. I weld a little bit, but I don't think I'd try welding aluminum, especially not a specialized piece like this, handcrafted piece. Somebody welded this up on a bench, and each one is a little bit different. Each one has little grinding marks here and there for whatever reason, I don't know. But the other thing that putting screws in these little tiny holes did was it pulls the aluminum out. So, and maybe that's so there's like little ridges all the way around. I'll file those all down, make it flat. I think if I put bolts in there, like deeper bolts, that won't happen again. What else have I discovered? Well, there's a thing I discovered. Okay, so the adjusting bolts for the idler sprockets, they just like completely painted the thread. So the bolts don't spin very well on paint. So what they probably did, this was already assembled and it was yellow, because I don't, oh, there is yellow on this. I was thinking they wouldn't have painted these before they go on the machine, right? But anyways, now there's 2 layers of paint on the thread, so these bolts, these nuts were not turning very well, and then now they're rusty. So I'm gonna go pull them off now and run them over the wire wheel and make them like new. But never will I paint the threads again, because you just can't spin the nuts by hand then. Yeah, so there's a couple quirky things I found. Here's another thought I had. What a lucky break I had. I've got 3 of the wheels off now, but light's bad over here. I'll go to another one. Can you just imagine if these had been rusty? And I mean, these wheels are actually just held together with tubes. You know, the hub of this wheel, the internal part, is going to fit pretty tight on that axle, and there is lots of surface there for it to seize up tight. I mean, I've got lawnmowers sitting out there. I can't get those rear wheels off. They'll probably never come off. I just can't. I've tried the old air chisel trick and everything. You can't hammer too hard from the inside because you'll just smash the rear end all up. But oh yeah, if these had been seized on there, I just can't imagine how you would ever get them off. So I kind of suspect all of them are going to be good. When they go back on, a liberal application of anti-seize, and we'll never have to worry about that, because I totally plan on taking these on and off quite a lot to service those O-rings and whatever else I need to. So I got a whole bin full of nuts and bolts here. I got to go run through the parts cleaner and the wire wheel. And here's one of those little screws that I was talking about that holds on the O-ring retainer. As you can see, it's sharp pointy on that end. So it's just a self-tapper. They never even threaded those holes. They would have just drilled them and just run the screw in, figured, one time, out the door. So it's too bad, because the rest of this machine, I find it's engineered to last a long time and to be maintained well and often, and get like decades and decades of use out of this thing. And that's how they held on the retainer. That is the only thing that seals this tub from the water wanting to come in and the oil wanting to come out on 8 of these axles. They're nice and smooth now. I'll run some emery cloth on. Oh my god, that's ultra smooth. I wonder if that's actually machined like that, because I doubt the whole axle was machine smooth, but that's polished. I just wonder if they did a treatment like a ceramic coating on there. I don't think so. I think it's metal, but I used to. I better fill you in on a little a little ditty here. I used to actually work at Argo around the same time these things were built, so I was actually the competition, but I didn't know these things existed. Tell you what, if I had seen one of these in the shop and they were taking it apart, looking at it on reverse engineering or something, I would have been worried. I would have been worried. This is a much better machine than an Argo. Now, obviously, Argo's caught up. They make them fantastic, but 1979, 80, 81, I think I worked there 80, 81. Just in time for the recession to get me wiped out. So I wasn't there very long. I worked over on the machine shop side, so I was making axles and gears and sprockets and things. But yeah, if I had seen one of these roll in, I would have been like, well, now what are we going to do? This is clearly the answer to off-road amphibious vehicling. Now, I don't know. We'll find out when I get it fixed and do a test drive. I'll be able to compare, because I've had a lot of Argos, usually old ones that I've restored, pull apart every nut and bolt, restoration, and then I get them working, and I really find I don't use it too much, and I end up selling them. But then I see another one and buy another one, and that's what I was actually looking for when I found this. I think Kijiji was smart enough to know, put the search word Argo and somehow hook it up to this. I don't know how, maybe through amphibious, because he had it up, I don't think he even called it a bush machine. I'll have to look for the ad. I forget what he called it. Maybe just amphibious vehicle or something. And you know, he wanted 15. I thought I paid 15, but then I was looking back at my I was looking back at the text thread with the guy, and damn it if I didn't chew him down $200. What was I thinking? If I had missed out on this for 15, I would have just, anyway. I got him for $1,300, and he said, "Sure, load her up." These brackets, check that out, eh? I thought that somebody built this box for the seat, but when I got into the instruction manual, I realized they even hand draw in the wood grain and everything of the plywood when they're showing these things, and they're showing these brackets. These brackets are definitely original brackets, except in the manual they showed them on the outside. So by the time this one was built, they realized, oh, you know what, if we put them on the inside, people won't hack their ankles up on them. So but each one of these like angle brackets that holds the wood together is just hand tin snipped. It's not even cut off a press or anything. Each corner is just hand snipped because each one's different. This one actually says left on it, so it I guess the ones that were right just didn't have a description. So yeah, these are all original. Now here's something I'm not real convinced about though, is the seat belt. Well, it doesn't have a car maker on it. You think they might have put a passenger seat belt on? That bracket looks, well, it could be what they put in a car too, I don't know. I don't know that I'd want to be wearing a seat belt on something like this, because if it rolled over, I want to be free of the machine. Or if it rolls over in the water, I definitely want to be free in the machine. But if you click on the button, well, can't even find the button still. Alright, I think that's going to be good enough for now. Another example of how they just slap these things together. It looks like they, you know, some guy with tin snips just knew what he was doing. Now look at this teeny little corner he took off there, and then we run to the other side, and oh, great big corner he took off there. Love that kind of thing. It's a handmade unit. The other thing I noticed real quick is, and then I'm sure that'll be it, the belly pan, I guess I'll call it, on this tunnel. I thought that it would just be, you know, it's zigzag shaped. Like I forget why, it just helps go over, you know, kind of, I guess just to get a little more height out of in between the axles for going through the bog and stuff. But I assumed it would be just a formed single plate that they welded together to form a box. No, each and every segment is a separate flat piece, and someone has welded each one of those together. So this entire tub is absolutely handmade by a craftsman. Very good aluminum welder. Every single bit of it. So it's all made out of flat aluminum. That I can't believe they even took the time to cut this shape out of, really. I thought, you know, why not just make it flat? Manufacturing process would be easier, but this was an engineer that was building these. He just knew exactly what he wanted. And clearly Argo wasn't going to cut it, because he could have easily, he was a hunter, a trapper, and he easily could have just gone and bought an Argo, the best of the top of the line, but he had his idea of what's much, much better. So that's it. And of course, as you saw before, I got to make myself a new adjuster for the jack shaft chain. The other final last thing is every single other example of this machine, whether it was a Summers Bush machine or a Bristol Bush Swamper that you can find on the internet, shows a steering wheel. Alright, that is not a steering wheel. That looks like something out of an airplane. Now what I'm kind of curious about is, since the maker of these things was a pilot of his own small aircraft, I just wonder if he built one just to try out an aircraft kind of style feel for it. Personally, I think it's better than the steering wheel. When you have a steering wheel, I mean, usually when you think of steering wheel, you turn way to the left and way to the right. This doesn't turn very far. It just moves a little to the left, a little to the right. And then the throttle on it was this big thumb lever up on top of the steering wheel. I'll tag a little picture of it there. Yeah, that's it. And this one actually has a finger throttle under the right grip. So I had broken the throttle cable, so I've got a new one here. The little nub on the end is a little too big to fit in there, so I'm gonna have to do a little filing on that, and you know, slip right back in there. But why there's one on the left, I don't know, and it's much bigger. It's bigger than the one on the right. So I would think it's some kind of like a brake lever, but the way the brakes work on this, if you want to stop the machine both sides, like both sides brake, you just push the handles forward. And that moves this whole rack forward, which applies that brake liner to the belt and secondary clutch. Now, some people have gone ahead and apparently modified theirs to have actual brake discs, or maybe brake pads that actually rub on the secondary side plate instead. I mean, once you run out of brakes on this, luckily mine are like new, but once I run out of brakes, how are you ever going to replace those? It's just impossible. So there's ways to modify these things to make them better. Oh, it's got an ash cigarette lighter, which it's actually a cigarette lighter, but obviously it could be used for a floodlight, a spotlight, something like that. Charge your cell phone. I'm sure they're thinking about cell phone chargers in the 70s, right? Way ahead of their time, way ahead of their time. I forget what these trannies are in right now. I think neutral is in between, so yeah, I've had them in forward. I should really keep them in neutral. Yep, and then the axle will spin effortlessly. All right, I'm gonna go, number 3 is gonna be more complete. It'll be putting the chain back in, and probably I'll skip over the part of going through all the tires because I'm gonna pull them all off, and I'll go and I'll document how these chains are adjusted. It's a matter of running a hook down through the access plates on top of the tunnel, and you just pull on the chain and measure the height and measure the play and adjust those adjusters on the side to suit the specifications. I forget what it is, I'll have to look it up. That's gonna be it, and eventually we're getting, once we get that throttle on there, I'm going into detail about how you drive this thing, because I was a little vague in number 1. I mean, I described it, but when this thing's running, I'm gonna go through all 3 steering modes. It's gonna be a hoot, because 3 different kinds of steering. If you're good at rubbing your belly and patting your head, I think you'd have no problem driving one of these. A neat fact, I'll probably repeat another time. I noticed my plate here. I'm not sure if you're about to see that or not. And I won't worry about you being able to see the model, serial, and date and everything. But it is dated. It's dated actually. I found the online. You can go to the government's website where people register trademarks, and this was registered just 2.5 weeks before my stamp date. So I'm thinking my label is like one of the first ones to be on a machine after they actually registered the trademark. And the trademark they registered was the name Bush Machine as it relates to an amphibious all-terrain vehicle. So there's, of course, you can use Bush Machine for other things, but the trademark, and of course that logo. All right, so yeah, that logo, which is kind of hilarious because the tires they show on their logo are not even, have never been, as far as I can see, have never been on a machine. They show single wide tires, but they actually ended up going with double Argo tires, basically. Like that. More 70s hilarity. Can never have enough of that. All right, I'm out. Cheers.